Today on the Bourbon Bites podcast, I'm doing my first whiskey and snack pairing with the Nulu Maple Finish Bourbon, plus giving you a healthy dose of nostalgia with Pokémon and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle news. Hello everyone and welcome to the Bourbon Bites podcast. I'm your host Clifton, and today I'm so excited to do my very first whiskey and snack pairing inspired by none other than the Whiskey Mutant. So if y'all don't know, Whiskey Mutant on Instagram is our friend Eric. He is a co-host on This Is My Bourbon Podcast, and he loves to pair different bourbons and whiskeys with snacks from around the world. And believe it or not, I have never actually done one of these pairings until today, and I thought it's pretty appropriate because today I'm reviewing a Nulu Maple Finish Bourbon. This is a pick from Whiskey Mutant himself, as well as Perry from This Is My Bourbon Podcast and Chad from My Daily Bourbon. So this was a collaborative pick they did. They did a series of 3 of them for Total Wine. I missed out on those when they went on sale earlier this year, but I want to give a huge shout out to my friend Bourbon Noob Patrick over on Instagram who sent me this sample. So there was a lot of people involved in getting this to me and inspiring this podcast. So I just want you guys to go show them the love. I'll put everyone's links down in the description of this episode. But yes, this is a Nulu bourbon from Prohibition Craft Spirits. We do know that it's a 4 to 5 year old MGP Indiana bourbon that was finished for 4 months in maple syrup barrels. I don't believe I've ever had a maple finished whiskey. I may be forgetting something. I've definitely had a honey finished whiskey from Garrison Brothers that I really enjoyed. So I cannot wait to try this one. This one's also high proof. It's 118 proof. So I'm really excited to see how this one does. But not only will I be trying it by itself, I'm also going to be following the instructions on the sticker for this pick, which is actually a recipe called This Is My Cinnamon Roll recipe. And the instructions are very easy. You're supposed to take a honey bun and pour the Nulu over the honey bun and enjoy. So I just made a trip out to 7-Eleven. I honestly have not had a honey bun since I was literally like 12 or 13 years old. I only know that because I used to go over to my grandma's house and she was like the queen of snack cakes. She had like every variety ever. And I feel like I never really ate many snack cakes since then. So I thought this is a nice tribute to my past. This episode is going to be very nostalgic with all the different news that I have to share with you later in the episode. But first, I want to try this Nulu on its own because like I said, I've never had a maple finished bourbon. So let's get this opened. All right, I can't wait to give this a nose. Let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, I think it's off to a good start because I'm not getting a maple syrup explosion on the nose. I do like when a finish doesn't overpower a whiskey. I think what I really loved about what Garrison Brothers did with the honey one is it kind of was very balanced. It was a whiskey first and then the finish, especially the cast strength version I got to try when I met with the distillers at a local bar here in LA. But yeah, on the nose, I don't think I would guess that this is maple syrup barrel finished, but I can tell that this is really nice juice. I'm a huge fan of MGP bourbon, especially when you get it at the 5 or 6 year age statement. Like I said, this is between 4 and 5, but I've really had some incredible single barrels in that age range that have really outshone some even older releases. On the nose, this almost gives me like a cinnamon graham cracker on the nose. And there's a hint of like extra sweetness there that I think may be the maple influence. So to really get the full effect of this, I'm going to have to taste it. So cheers. Oh, wow. That's the maple. Yeah, you definitely get it on the palate over the nose. And actually, as I tasted that, I'm reminded that I actually have had a maple finished whiskey before. There's a small distillery called Tom's Foolery. I believe they're out of Ohio. I actually had them on the channel. Man, it's almost been a year now. But my friend Ian, or Ian, that bourbon guy on Instagram, I'm really doing a lot of shout outs today. You guys go follow all my friends. They're really great people, and not just that, but great creators as well. But he actually let me try a single barrel Tom's Foolery bourbon that was finished in maple, and that one was a maple bomb. Like the maple almost overpowered the whiskey in that one for me. It was definitely not what I expected. It's definitely a desserty whiskey. This one though, it's not quite as dominant with the maple. The maple definitely feels like it accents the bourbon itself, and I can really tell, like I said, that this is a really good MGP bourbon. That's the base for this. I will say I can kind of tell that this is a younger release. I think I've just been having a lot of like 6-year-old MGP lately. So with this being, just under 5 years old, I do get a little bit of the youthfulness on the oak from the actual, base spirit. But I think that's kind of made up by the fact that this has this really thick, rich base of the maple syrup that's kind of coating my mouth from beginning to end. And wow, that complements it so well. I think they took what was, starting to be a really good whiskey and, kind of they didn't like rapid age it, but instead they gave it something that, made it not need the extra time in the barrel, because you're getting that extra 4 months of finishing, and it's really coating the body of this whiskey. Man, that is a delicious pour. That's an excellent pick. I'm jealous of everyone that got their hands on it. But I can't give a full review of this whiskey without following this is my cinnamon bun recipe. So like I said, I picked up a honey bun from 7-Eleven. First of all, I need to try this on its own, because like I said, it's literally been 10 years since I've had one. So let me go in and get that open. Oh man, just opening the package, it just instantly takes me back to those days at my grandma's house. Let me just try the honey bun, primarily to open it up so I can pour some freaking whiskey in it. Oh, that's so good. It's nice and soft. Now, this is a 7-Eleven branded one. I feel like the ones that I used to get as a kid were like the official ones. I guess they're Hostess or something like that. Those to me always were a little bit dry, but this 7-Eleven one, it's really soft and like cakey, but it's still that classic flavor that I know and love. So I have a nice big opening on my honey bun. That sounds really weird, but so I'm going to do my first pairing / pouring whiskey on my snacks. So this one is to Eric, Whiskey Mutant, like I said, on Instagram. You guys go give him a follow. All right, my bun is thoroughly saturated by this Nulu maple. So let's go ahead and, without further ado, give it a taste. I wasn't expecting the alcohol to kind of shine through, but like I said, I poured a lot into this honey bun. You know what? I think I get it. I finally get this snack and whiskey thing. I've been doubting it for months, but that's just goes to show, don't knock it till you try it. That is an excellent pairing. Let me go back to the whiskey now. Oh, wow. So now that I've had the honey bun, it takes a lot of the sweetness, it kind of pulls it to the back burner on the whiskey, but it doesn't make it any less rounded. I think what I thought was the maple that was kind of making it rounded isn't just the maple. I think, honestly, it's a solid bourbon. I know I was kind of knocking it for seeming a bit young on first sip. When I go back to it, it's just a solid single barrel. I mean, obviously this was picked by people that know far more than I do about bourbon. These guys have been doing it for years, and I gotta say, this is a really fantastic pick. So I know Perry from This Is My Bourbon Podcast does barrel picks all the time. If you guys want to get in on that, first of all, go listen to his show. He does podcasts as well. He has a YouTube channel, This Is My Bourbon Podcast, on YouTube. He goes live the same night I do. But to get access to things like that, make sure to support him on all the social networks. He's been posting about them as they come up. Speaking of which, while you're following him, make sure you check out my channels as well. Like I said, I go live every week over on YouTube. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram. Bourbon Bites, spelled the same way you see it here. And you can also support the show for as little as $2 a month on Patreon and get access to segments I've cut out from the podcast when it runs a little long, as well as early access to my reviews and polls that help shape the future of the channel and the podcast. I actually put up a poll for this week's live stream and asked patrons what they wanted to see the most. So the winner actually got picked. It is a Talisker single malt Scotch stream where I'm trying not just Talisker 10, but a few really hard to get releases, including Storm, Dark Storm, and Distiller's Edition. So definitely check out the replay of that one if you missed it. Again, thank you to my patrons for helping decide on that stream. But yeah, I really do appreciate the support from everyone there, all my YouTube members, and honestly, anyone that's subscribed to me on YouTube or the podcast. By the way, if you want to get your feedback read out loud, make sure to leave me a rating on Apple Podcasts and review if you want to see it out loud. I really do appreciate all those reviews. It helps me kind of boost myself in the charts. I've noticed I've actually been doing really well in terms of like, when you search for Bourbon Podcast, mine actually comes up pretty high, which is really exciting for me. I never expected that. Of course, there's so many other great bourbon podcasts out there as well, including Perry's that I mentioned earlier. But it's just great to feel like I kind of belong, and I feel like I'm starting to build a presence. So like I said, if you could leave me a rating, it seriously does help out. And if you have the chance, to even just write a sentence or two in a review on Apple, man, that would just mean a lot to me, and I'll be happy to read it out on the show. But without further ado, we still have more nostalgia to get into, because there are two pieces of the news that I feel like you guys want to know about. Both of these actually launched this week, but I'm going to talk about the one that came out today, Friday, June 17th, 2022. And that is a brand new animated short series from Pokemon called PokéToon. Now, when I say brand new, I mean new to US audiences, because this was previously released as a Japanese language YouTube series on the Pokemon Kids channel. But they're actually bringing it to English-speaking audiences starting this week. Like I said, June 17th, they are live. They're launching one episode every Friday. Now, these are different from, episodes of Pokemon that we all know. These are actually short stories, and they're definitely a different type of animation. They're definitely more hand-drawn. Some of them look like a vintage, like 1940s or 50s cartoon. Really like the style. I kind of looked at some of the Japanese language versions of them. So it's really nice to see that they are translating these into English and dubbing them. And they just look really cool. So if you are in the mood for a short film kind of experience, definitely check out PokéToon. There are going to be 8 total episodes. The first one launched this week. I haven't watched it because I'm actually recording this a couple days before it launches, but by the time you're hearing this, it'll be out. Y'all know the drill. But these are also coming to the Pokemon YouTube channel later this fall. So if you want to first look at them, definitely check out Pokemon TV. And another relevant piece of news, not just because it's nostalgic, but also it's got the word mutant in it, as we just had this Whiskey Mutant pick of Nulu. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has a brand new game. It's called Shredder's Revenge. Now this just came out this week, June 16th, so this Thursday. I just watched the IGN review of this, and if you are a fan of classic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games, you're gonna love this. This whole game was inspired by the arcade era of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's got a lot of references to, the classic 1989 game, as well as the 1991 Turtles in Time, which was my jam. Anytime I go into an arcade and I see that game, I gotta play it. I know I annoy my friends because they want to play the more modern games. I'm like, no, we have to play Turtles. So I definitely have that bit of nostalgia there. But this game, Shredder's Revenge, it's coming to multiple platforms, and it's, of course, multiplayer, as I would hope. So it's coming to Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox, and Windows. So if you are a fan of those classic games, it's definitely the same, side-scrolling animation. It's got a little bit of a modernization there where it's not just being like a button masher like we're kind of used to. It actually has some skill involved, and the combos you can do definitely seem a bit more advanced than what was possible in the late 80s, early 90s. But it still has that energy, that nostalgia from those classic games, as well as the TV show as well. It's really great that they're paying tribute to this past era of games, but not just paying tribute, but actually honoring it and not, screwing it up. Because how often do we see remakes or remasters kind of mess up games? This one is a whole new idea, but it's based on the same style and feel and gameplay ability, if that's a word, gameplay ability. But the same, you're going to get the same feeling as you did when you played those classic games. And I, for one, am absolutely here for that. I'm going to be picking that up probably this weekend. So if you see me on Twitch streaming this game, you'll know why. By the way, you guys can follow me, twitch.tv/bourbonbites. Haven't done one there in a while, but I really want to start picking that back up, especially on weekends. Especially right now, because I'm kind of in between jobs, so I have a lot of more free time on my hands. So I'm definitely going to try to pick up more Twitch streams, hopefully coming soon. But I think that does it for this week's episode. I know it's shorter than usual, but I was kind of light on whiskey news at this point. I know we talked about a couple podcasts ago, and there's a few upcoming releases, but I kind of want to get more info on them before I start talking about them. It's great reading the TTB labels, but at the same time, I love when I have a chance to maybe, have a sample of something coming soon. So I'm going to keep an eye out for those, reach out to my contacts, especially because right now, like I said, I have a lot more time, so I'd love to kind of give you guys a first look at some new releases. But for now, I'm sticking with the past, with the honey bun and the Pokemon and Ninja Turtle news. So thank y'all so much for listening. Like I said, leave me a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. It really means a lot. You can support the show on Patreon, patreon.com/bourbonbites. But most of all, I'm so thankful that you listened in to today's episode. Until next time, this has been the Bourbon Bites Podcast, a whiskey podcast with a gaming twist. Cheers, and I'll talk to you next episode.